let's get real. Let's get a little silly. It's like, yeah.
You just want me to be me. You don't want me to be Pastor Chris. You want me just to be Chris.
Well, I mean,
because here's the thing, Zach. There's no gap. That's what makes me a fun pastor.
Welcome to the Tiny Podium with Pastor Zach. I'm Pastor Zach, joined by Pastor Chris.
I'm so glad to be here with you, man.
Thank you for being here on this new format, this new platform, this new thing we're trying out.
Yeah, podcasts aren't new, but this is exciting.
I've never heard of one before.
I feel like we're finally catching up to the 20th century.
The church is usually behind. Mm-hmm. I told that to a theologian I was talking to. He's a professor at Regent, and I was like, well, the church is usually 50 years behind. He's like, well, after we had a conversation, he's like, I'd say 20 or 30. 50 is a bit aggressive. And he was like offended. I was like, nah.
We're finally understanding how to use the printing press here in the church in Canada.
So this is a new thing, and you're going to be a reoccurring personality on this thing.
Thankful to, be here with you. And this is exciting, Zach.
You're a great voice. You're part of our preaching team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you've had a couple messages. When's the next time you're preaching? It might be already played by the time this posts.
Sure. Yeah. A bunch coming up. We have all throughout the summer scheduled out, and it's an exciting time. Obviously a big change for the church and, what's going on with Mark and everything. But I think one thing that I hope people see throughout this, I think this is one of the greatest opportunities for people to see it's been Jesus the whole time. Yeah. Because if there's any transformation that's happening in people's lives, it's because of him. And I know Mark preaches that, but we all kind of love to, hold to what we can see and feel, which was for a long time a physical pastor who preached the word of God faithfully and did that in an incredible way. And man, was he gifted. He still is. But I think that it's R.I.P. But it's a really cool season to see the strength of the rest of the team, and I hope people are benefiting in their walks with Jesus because of that.
I want to learn more about. I want people to kind of know us. They'll feel like, hey, we see you, we hear you, we love you.
Hi.
You are there, and you are here. I want to get into who is Chris.
Yeah, jump in
a little bit. A couple topics. One is music. You're a musical guy.
Thank you.
And if I would have to put it some way, I'd say you're a musical guy. Just like that.
Yeah, great. I think that's a compliment. Thank you. Yeah.
You like to beatbox.
Mm-hmm.
You can sing.
Yeah.
You were in a band.
Yes, I was.
You can find the music of your band.
Yeah.
In the internet somewhere.
You should not search that on YouTube.
We'll put it up right here. Wait, you're a Spotify guy, Apple Music guy?
No, yeah, a Spotify guy for sure. I've just been for a while.
Can we just throw Apple Music people under the bus?
No, I think it works for some people. Dude, I don't care what platform you listen to. You're a music lover. You're a music lover. You know what I'm saying? And music has this power to inspire and to change lives and to transform moments in your life.
I want to talk about that. That was one of my questions, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about music, exactly what you said. We hear a song and it can be powerful.
Right, it pulls something out of you.
And we want to get into contrasting this with Christian music.
Sure.
Sometimes Christian music can do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can't. Or it doesn't.
Sure, just like anything.
Just but then sometimes we have a moment where it's maybe we're encountering this deeper spiritual, theological Jesus through a non-Christian thing.
Of course.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
How do you tell us?
Here's an example. Okay, one of the greatest moments in cinema that I believe in recent years has been captured. It's in Spiderman Into the Spider-Verse. Have you guys seen that film?
That's a great film.
It's an incredible film, especially for boys coming of age, this idea of hero and what does it mean to actually find your own footing and to be yourself in the midst of something, right? Spider-Man is such a defined idea in all of our minds because there's been so many renditions that we've experienced him through. And now you have Miles Morales engaging in a different Spider-Verse, both with Peter Parker of the past, but also with all these other different ideas of Spider-Man. And then you see him coming into a step of that. Right. There's a scene in the movie where he finally needs to actually be the Spider-Man that everybody needs him to be, to be the hero of the story, but he doesn't feel like a hero. And he's sitting on top of this building, and he has his hands perched against the wall, and it's hey, when do you know you're going to be Spider-Man? You don't. it's going to be a leap of faith. And he jumps off the building. And the problem with Miles Morales was when he's nervous and he can't do something, his fingers grip too strong. And so he can't let go of things, right? There's scenes all through the movie where he's stuck, he's trying. And actually, interesting side note, people from Village worked on this film, which is incredible too. They were actually like part of the animation team. Some of our people from Langley North, which is incredible. Like people, not like Village church staff, but like people who call Village home. That's awesome. So here he is. He's stuck on this thing, and he has to make this momentary, like this leap of faith in his life to be Spider-Man beyond his thoughts of thinking that he can make it and do it. And he pushes off the wall, and the glass shatters because he's pulling himself off, but he's still sticking because he's nervous. And the glass shatters. He starts falling to the ground at like a lightning speed, but then it flips upside down. It shows him like falling upwards towards the cityscape. So it's like he's actually rising into who he's meant to be. And the song that's in the background of what he's doing,
or it'll get demonetized.
It's a song that's like "What's Up, Danger." Is what it's called, and it's this whole idea of him no longer being afraid of the things that are in his life, but him moving forward in this really powerful moment of stepping into who he's meant to be. And this is interesting because the Bible tells us that we were made with purpose, and that each of us, regardless of what that calling is, have a role to play. Right? Like this is the body of Christ. Right? Some are arms, some are eyes, some are feet. We all have this thing, but in our own lives, we feel so limited by our abilities or by what we can accomplish, or we feel so nervous about how things are going to go. We can be inundated with stress and anxiety. It just weighs upon us and tries to keep us in place, even if God is calling us to that next step that might be uncomfortable. So in this moment of seeing Miles Morales come to this climax of who he is as a hero, pushing off this building, this song, like "What's Up, Danger," like it's like don't be a stranger. It's this whole thing that's building to this moment of him just actually succeeding in the face of everything that's against him. Yeah. I had a spiritual moment in my own walk with Jesus because of that scene in the film that caused, like, an animated cartoon film I was watching with my sons that caused me to be like, because of who Jesus empowers me to be and because he goes with me, I don't have to be afraid of the things I'm regularly afraid of in my life. I don't have to be afraid of moving forward and things God's calling me to be. I can legit look what defined danger in the face and know that my God is bigger than that, is the one who's already won that fight against death and sin and shame and guilt, who calls me into something else. And if he's calling me there, even if I'm not ready for it, I can trust him in that.
It's good.
And so that's, I think, a defining theme in a lot of people's lives, is this overcoming and something that's in front of us. I'll give you an example. We just planted Langley North. We're 4 months in. Like, things are going...
in the past.
This is in the past. Okay.
We didn't
our first cinema location. Yeah. My wife and I, we led a core team. We planted this church, and it was going exceedingly well. I'm in the washroom here at the office, and Mark comes in, stands at the urinal next to me. He's like, "Man, big changes are coming." And I said, "Are they good?" He says, "They're good for you." And he washes his hands and he walks out. And I'm like, in that moment, this is no word of a lie. This is what happened. In my head, I just felt like they're going to offer you the position of being the lead pastor of the Surrey location. Now, at that time, we had somebody there, and it didn't make any sense to me. I actually, to the point that I felt so clear about it, I went to our pastor, Josh Cruz, and I said, "Hey, like, this is what I think I just heard, and I don't know, but I just want to say it just in case it's right." And 3 days later, they offered me the role.
Right.
And it's like, when I told him that, because it sounded crazy to me that I never stepped into that. I called 2 people after that moment. I called, obviously told my wife, so maybe 3, right? But I also called my friend who was like the head of a marketing agency across Canada, and I talked to him about this role, and I said, "Man, I don't know if I'd be able to do it." He said, "Chris, like, what we'd call you in our industry is an underfill, someone who has great potential but hasn't realized it yet. Like, you're stepping into a role that's bigger than you, and everybody knows that, but they see in you the ability to actually accomplish that." And then inside of us, I think we all kind of feel that. Like, I think we feel like we could, but we're scared too. Right. And so that's when I talked to Josh afterwards about it. He said the reason you even thought that at the beginning maybe could have been the Spirit of God prompting you, but also maybe could have been you knew subconsciously that you were able and ready to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't have even considered it.
Right.
And so there's something in this play of our lives with Jesus where we're just like trying to figure out, like, what can I accomplish? And when you finally put it back in his court and saying, "Jesus, like, what can you accomplish through me?" Then you get this moment where even secular things like this song, "What's Up, Danger," in this moment with Spider-Man can actually be a powerful spiritual moment with your walk with Jesus. And I think that's actually maybe even like part of like a maturity in Christ thing. It's like you're no longer just looking at church moments as moments with Jesus. You're looking at every moment as a moment with Jesus. So it's like, what can God do here through this that is not just church box Christian? And music has the incredible ability to actually move you in that way.
Yeah. I think that like really plays into calling becomes so important, because just doing what God has put in front of you whatever that is to your understanding.
Right.
That is so much better. It's not like worldly idea of like the best thing, like at the top of the organization or the most money it's like all these things are possible with him. Easy. It's a different scale of like living into what God's gifted you, put in front of you, asking you, or just whatever you're doing is like into living that out. It's like,
well, let's just unpack that for a second. You have this idea that certain things are good and valuable, and they're good. You could say compensation, not just money, but I mean like compensation for what you are valuable as. So your expectation through life, if you are continuing to grow and continuing to develop and continue to be someone of value, is that you become more valuable over time. Is that like we'd all agree with that, right? Like the hope is that your trajectory in life is up, up, up. I'm always saying this. I'm going to peak when I'm 50. You know what I mean? Like, and I like, and then as I grow older, I change that to 60. I get a little further.
I'm going to peak when I'm dead.
But it's this Matthew McConaughey moment, like when he won his Oscar. He talked about the story of like, who's your hero? And he said, it's me 10 years from now. And then 10 years later, he ran into that same person. And the guy said, so did you become your hero? He said, no. He's like, it's me from 10 years from now. It's like the bar's always moving. So if we believe we're more valuable down the road, then fairness would say that we'd be more compensated for our value. So all those things that we want, money, people listening to us, fame and acclaim, reputation, like that. If we're always growing that, all those things should naturally come to us as a product of what we actually become. And I don't think those are bad things. No. But here's the problem. The problem is not the mindset of, I deserve those things one day and I hope to get them. Because that fits in the worldview of what everybody believes in our value and how we should be. Although, of course, we're broken and we may not become everything we want to be, all of those things. The problem is pacing. Nobody is satisfied with the speed at which we're getting those things. Yeah. We see these fluke-off, one-off things where people get more money, more value, more claim, and that's what we want right away. Right. And we fail to understand that there's actually a sovereign God who's growing us outside of what we want and will give us certain things in time. Now, I'm not saying like I intend to be wealthy and have a lot of influence in an older age, but if I'm doing it well, then it would make sense that would happen. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that is the actual end of like what success looks like.
Well, it's almost like this is like that scale, like that you're talking about, like trying to get position and compensation. It's like these things I think fold into God's plan, but they're not like arranged in the way that we necessarily see. Like these aren't the ladders, but these things function within like our calling, our gifting, and what God's calling to do.
Sure.
And they might represent a direction, or they might be something else.
And it could be none of those things. Like God's plan for my life might be that I turn 60 and have nothing. Sure. And will I be satisfied that I've grown in my affection for him? And that is like then the ultimate question of the all-satisfying nature of Jesus.
Right. After some bad crypto investments, might be worth.
Dude, I've only lost money in crypto.
Well,
actually, I think every financial investment like that I've made, I have never come out on top. So I stopped doing it because, other friends make money. I don't. That's just not my group.
Hold on. Don't sell your Bitcoin, okay?
Dude, I was in everything.
Just hold on to it.
Dude, don't sell your Bitcoin yet. Don't buy a pizza with it.
In Spideyverse, you think the older Peter Parker, the washed up pizza eating like beer gut guy, you think that's more representation of Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield?
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield was, in my opinion, one of the better Spider-Man.
There's rumors of them making a third one, eh?
Great. I love Andrew Garfield. Always have, bro. People call him underrated. I don't think he's underrated. I just think he's a great actor.
You loved Tick, Tick, Boom, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Of course I did. Yeah.
It was. I stopped watching halfway through.
What are you talking about? Why?
It was.
Dude,
that's not a comment on the value of the film. It's just what happened.
And are you a musical fan?
I like musicals.
You like them, but are you a fan? Like, do you like musicals? Like, do you go out of your way to see them if they're around? If a new musical comes out, are you excited to say, oh, man, I got to see that?
Probably not.
See, so my wife and I, we love musicals. So this is part of that musical thing, okay? I grew up in musical theater. Like, I was sent every summer. Cellophane, now Mr. Cellophane, should have been my name, Mr. Cellophane, because you can walk right through me, look right through me, walk right by me, and never know I'm there.
We just got taken off. I don't even know what that's
Chicago. So I
Did you do that?
Yes.
Who would you play?
I was Mr. Cellophane. It's a piece
I've never
of
seen Chicago.
Okay, yeah. So there's these there's pieces from different things that we would do throughout musical theater. Like we wouldn't do like this full scripted, like we're doing Lion King.
Like
we do
scenes,
pieces from different ones, like from monologues to
Is this in high school?
No, this is like a full sent off. Like my parents would send me to Fredericton to live with my grandparents to do musical theater for the parts of the summer, as I was growing up.
Like all throughout school, like
throughout my childhood, yeah, yeah. And so that was like a huge piece of
is Fredericton like the big like musical city?
Well, they got Playhouse Theater. Like they got great theater there, and it's one of those things where there's a lot of history there. So
shout out to all our Fredericton.
The East Coast vibe is that, and you feel that, right? Like there's a history of art and performance there. It may not be a cultural hub for art and performance, but there's a history of it. Like Anne of Green Gables of PEI. Like you have like even musicals that are happening, like the Grand Seduction, which is like a kind of a Newfoundlander like movie of trying to seduce this doctor to stay so that they can actually have a factory in the town so they have jobs again. That's now coming out as a new musical with Adam Doyle, who's the lead singer of Great Big Sea, right? Hey, it's just an ordinary day. Was that 3 seconds? And then I don't want
like
to cancel
Boston to St. John,
right? Like the whole listen. I was raised on Celtic drinking songs out there. All right, the Rankin family. Like this was, dude.
Is it 40 days and 40 nights? The Rank is that Rankin family?
Actually, I don't know, and I don't know if it's because of how you sang it or because of what it actually is, and I haven't heard it. But here's like it's. The cool thing about musical theater for me was it grew a passion for musicals, and my wife has that too. She loves musicals, and so what our relationship, we actually fell in love with that movie Rent. So getting back to Tick Tick Boom, Rent was one that we watched in theaters. We went and saw live when Broadway came through. It was big for us, and so the guy who wrote Rent, obviously, like we see Tick Tick Boom as that build up towards Rent, but it's one of his pieces. And tragic story where he passed away from a heart aneurysm.
Did you know that story like intimately before you watched Tick Tick Boom?
No, we just loved the musical. So for us, it was like, oh wow, there's so many common like ideas through these songs, and you see themes that built because Tick Tick Boom came before Rent, but obviously Rent was the major motion picture and is the Tony winning award winning thing, and so it ended up being this thing where it actually backfilled all our love for Rent was then. It like increased because of hearing this whole story around Tick Tick Boom and what his story was of writing it and the things he went through and how it intertwined, and you see the styles, like artistic styles and music. And then to also, so this is another thing, my dad died from a brain aneurysm, but at 36, around the same age, had a heart aneurysm that Andrew Garfield's character actually had in real life, which was on the actual opening night of Rent back in his actual life. Which was wild because they thought my dad's was Marfan syndrome for a long time, which is what this man had. He had Marfan syndrome, which caused him. And there's actual physical traits of that. So if you look at pictures of the man who wrote Tick Tick Boom and Rent, he actually, like, there's certain things that, like, you have, your arms are a little longer than they notably would be. Like, there's certain things that are like, there's physical traits that might point to the syndrome. My dad was clear he didn't have that. It was actually a genetic piece that they've tested us for since and everything. It's cool they can do that. But so that story had so much power because I had the emotion of my dad wrapped up in it. The emotion of this incredibly, like, we would say, if you ask my wife even what's your favorite musical, it would be either Moulin Rouge, the rendition they did with Ewan McGregor and stuff like that, or Rent. And Rent is probably the one that has the most value in our relationship because that was one that we'll watch every year, spend time and see it live, love the songs. Like, even right now, our kids sing the songs, and like it's just one of these neat things that's part of our life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you don't know anything that we're talking about, watch Tick Tick Boom. It's on Netflix. Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, well, I'd say watch Rent first and then watch Tick Tick Boom.
What's the best? What live plays have you seen?
So I'll tell you this. Instead of going through those, I'll tell you the best live.
Do you have a hard out?
What's that?
It's 1:30. Do you have a?
Yeah, I do have a meeting coming up, but listen, like I'll text them and let them know I'll just be a few minutes late because
this is we're not cutting any of this out. This is live. We're in the office in the middle of the day. We're gonna give you little scenes about what it's like here at Village because we want to bring you into it. So this is just keep all this in.
The best live musical that I've seen, even with the nostalgia of what Rent was Dear Evan Hansen.
I've never heard of that.
So, Dear Evan Hansen.
Where'd you see it?
At the Queen E in Vancouver, the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, because they have Broadway in Canada comes through, and so my wife and I go down when we can, and find an opportunity. To
Is this a story that you knew beforehand? Like, did you know what you're getting into? Or
no, and I think That's what made it so
Don't have expectations
powerful.
is everything.
It was like my wife and I, we had no grid. We didn't know the story, but we knew it won some awards, and we knew it was really good, and people talked about it. And so we went there, and we didn't have like Kleenex with us or anything, and it became one of the most emotional theater experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
Like both of us just like ugly crying, our sleeves like soaked. Like we came back after intermission with like wraps of toilet paper around our hands because we knew how like crazy it was going to be. I know, just like that. Yeah, it's like it was great. It was a wild emotional experience. Now they have made a movie since of Dear Evan Hansen. It didn't capture the same emotion as the last one. So they do a good job. Like Rent did a good job of a theater rendition of an incredible musical. This one did not. I almost wish, remember in the pandemic when they brought Hamilton to Disney Plus and they shot it as like you're watching the actual stage performance of Hamilton?
Yeah.
I wish they did that for Dear Evan Hansen.
Did you watch that?
We haven't watched it. We just read it, and I don't want to ruin the experience, so I'm not watching it.
Of Hamilton.
Oh, of Hamilton. Oh, yeah, I did watch that. Yes.
Oh,
yeah. And it's phenomenal.
Incredible. It's interesting. Yeah, play like that medium of like. There's some like plays. It's like it's almost this like hidden gems. Like you got to go see it live. You can't see it anywhere, and then they make a movie. It's like it's nothing like the play because play is something that is just unique unto itself.
Here's why. There's an environment in which theater takes place that cannot be recreated anywhere else. It's like watching Endgame with Marvel in the theater on opening night compared to watching it in your living room alone.
So true.
It's like there is something where you're in the room.
Touch you.
Right?
This is my like. You say Endgame. Like Captain Marvel gets Monyé, everyone's like, yeah. I'm like, just like that. I just needed something,
dude. Yeah, anytime you touch me, anytime you want, Zach. It's okay.
It's like that just hit me right in the feels.
But that's what it is.
Yeah.
There is a wow. We're in the room. It's just. But you know what? Live experiences are like that. I remember the first time I'm a big fan of mixed martial arts and all of that. And the first time I went to a real event. And I heard a bone snap in half, and I felt like you hear the punches live, and it's like there is a visceral, like you can feel the room.
Wow!
And there's something about that human experience that is just powerful. I've
never had an inclination to go to a live fight event until you just said that. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, let me know when the next one is. I need to go.
And you know what? I've been to a few now, and I actually prefer because I'm not like affording like UFC like stage side seats, unless someone's got cage side, got something that could hook up. I would love to do that one day. But it's like, for like even local shows that I'll go to, like because I will go to the UFC when it comes in town and like get a chance, and we have friends who will go and are very interested in it, guys from jiu-jitsu. But like. The local fights where you have these incredible world-class fighters who are just making it onto that stage. Yeah. And like you're so close, you hear everything. You hear their pace of breathing. You hear their corners yelling the things to them. It's all so clear and loud. You hear the responses. You hear that like when they get hit, it's like you are there. Ooh. And it's unbelievable like what that does to the moment, because you're no longer sitting back and watching like, oh, like it's a show. Like it's actually like happening to a person in the room, and it just adds that just like an extra sense of urgency and care for whatever's happening. Like it's wild.
We should bring the camera and watch you roll one time.
Yeah.
Put it on the podcast.
I'm setting up mats in my garage as we speak right now.
That'll be one of our field trips. We want to do field trips on the podcast.
Dude, yeah, come on out.
That'll be fun.
You just have to get on the mats with me, Zach.
Well, I wish there's someone else. Is there anyone else that on staff that rolls, or any pastors that?
No, there's people who've talked a big game, but nobody who actually trains. I would love to take you. Seriously, Zach. Here's the thing. It's a controlled environment.
It'll be fun.
You're not going to get hurt.
Break my arm.
No, you can. You can literally go 100% on me, and we'll just see. Zach, you're a very interested person. You're interesting, but you're interested in interesting things, which makes you interesting.
I don't know if I've ever been described as that, and I think I love it.
Yeah, it's a great thing to be called, because that's why that's why Lauren will never be bored with you. That's why you'll always have opportunity to speak in people's lives, because you're a guy you can sit down with and like talk for hours about different things, and you're interested in things and have great thoughts. What is one of those kind of things that you've been, as of late, interested in? What is the interesting thing that Zach is interested in?
I love this. The biggest thing, and it's a little bit vulnerable to share, but I want to be this person that is an advocate for things, is Pokemon cards.
Right. You know what's funny? You had commented recently on a YouTube video that I was in, and I clicked on your profile, and I clicked on what you subscribe to on YouTube, and there's like a Pokaholic or something like that, like a Pokemon.
Some YouTuber, Pokemon YouTuber.
Yeah, that you follow. And I thought, that is so cool that Zach is so willing just to be him. I'm so proud that he's still into Pokemon cards.
Not still. I recently got into it. Like, obviously, I had them as a kid.
Is it because you watching guys pull cards online and stuff like that?
Yeah, I like doing that.
Yeah.
And I think over the pandemic, the collectibles market went like crazy.
Right.
So you get like these crazy
Gary
things.
V, like he's doing all the basketball cards, and everybody's jumping on that, and yeah.
Are you making content, dude?
Right.
Like Gary V.
Dude, he started as a wine guy, hey?
Yeah, wine club.
Right. Wild.
Yeah, so it's just interesting. Like, I mean, these things like a Charizard's worth like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Logan Paul's buying boxes of Pokemon cards for $3.5 million. He just set the Guinness World Record. He bought one Pokemon card for $5.3 million.
And what card was that?
I think it's a Pikachu Illustrator card, PSA 10. So it's like I think it's the only card that's graded a 10.
Wow.
In the world. So he did a WWE. And then he, like, right after a match, he bought the card, and Guinness was there, and he set the Guinness World Record for most expensive Pokemon card ever bought.
Wow.
What a guy.
That's incredibly interesting. And that's why he's going to make and continues to make money in headlines.
I think like something happens, and there's a whole world, like anything. Like, we're just talking about, like, 5 different topics. It's like there's so much to it, and people dedicate their whole lives to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's this one YouTuber. So you can go on YouTube. I think it's interesting enough to say, it's like Logan Paul bought a case of Pokemon cards. So it's there's booster boxes which have 36 cards in them, and then he bought a case of 6 booster boxes for $3.5 million.
Wow.
And then they thought it was fake. And then, so he opened it. If you just go and Google Logan Paul, you can see him opening up this box, and it's fake. It's full of G.I. Joe cards. So he bought this fake box, and he got his money back, which is kind of like a clickbaity, because he's like, at the beginning of the video, he's like, I lost $3.5 million. He's like, buy my energy drink. It's like, no, you didn't. The guy gave you your money back. But there's like these other small YouTubers. There's this one guy, like his name's like Poker Rattle or something. He just does YouTube videos on like the Pokemon subculture of like scam artists, and like he dissected the Logan Paul. He's the one who thought, he's like, this box is fake. And then that got to Logan Paul. He's like, I think this box is fake. We have to open it to find out.
Yeah.
But this guy only has like 16,000 subscribers.
Right.
And nobody knows who he is. And I'm like, why isn't this guy huge? This is so interesting. And he just he's like a detective.
Yeah.
And he called the guy that there's a guy who sold it to a guy who sold it to a guy who sold it to Logan Paul. He got that guy on the phone.
Wow.
And he's like talking, and he's doing all these things. This guy's whole life is like Pokemon cards in this world, and he just loves it. And like, you're walking around, you don't even know what Pokemon cards exist.
Right, yeah.
Like, what, you don't even like
follow your passion, bro.
But that's with everything.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I'm walking around, and there's things that you're probably passionate about. I don't even know they exist. And you're just like, this is my whole life. Even like our job, like someone says their job title, like, oh, I do this. Like, what is that? And you spend 40 hours a week doing that, and I don't even know what it is.
Oh, bro, that's everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, people think I only work on Sundays. That's like that literally thing. Oh, as a pastor, that must be nice. Like, you get paid.
We also
Like,
do this.
Right. We also push meetings for podcasts. No, but it's interesting. Like, you're right. And that's where you can find significance and meaning and community in everything you do. Harvard just came out with a study on that was talking about how like meaning is something that you can actually produce in your life. And it's just you can really produce meaning in anything.
Yeah.
And we see that happening functionally and all sorts of things. Like, I used to open Pokemon card packs when they first came out, and some of these cards people are talking. I remember seeing Charizards like that are these ones that people are excited to pull way back in the day. And it's like they were exciting because it was Charizard, but they weren't exciting because they're worth millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how that changes.
They fold it, put it in their pocket.
My children recently got a box of Star Wars action figures from my mother-in-law, and they were found in the back of this like place, and we don't use them anymore. Let's give them to them. And they are like, if you were to actually have packaged Star Wars, like these guys packaged, they'd be worth a ton of money. Yeah. Like these are old, original, like it's wild. Yeah. And he literally has every character you could think of Star Wars. Now my kids haven't been to them, but they're all opened and played with, and like that's just my kids like throw them on the ground. It's like they could be valuable, and for somebody that would be the dream to have us just a whole desk of Star Wars action figures. You know, it's very interesting to tie Beanie Babies, and that was a big thing and blew up. Like people would buy and travel and sell Beanie Babies to make money for their families, and that was something they did. It's very interesting.
Well, I think one of the biggest examples, like Pokemon Go, when that first came out,
right?
The world changed for like 2 weeks. Yes, you would there'd be people everywhere.
I met strangers at parks,
and you'd be like, "What's up?"
Yeah, they're playing Pokemon Go,
like that. Yeah. Like the world changed for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Like even if you weren't into it, you're driving. You're like, "Why is there 50 people around that skate park?" Yeah. It's like there. And then it died.
And now it's mostly irrelevant.
Yeah.
You know, although I still get ads like telling me to try Pokemon Go again. And it's like it is very, very, very interesting. And I think one of the cool things though is that there's things that would be considered culturally timeless.
Yeah.
But then there are things that will be timeless and valuable to you.
Yeah.
And where you invest your time, so you invest your life. You know, like the old adage from Mumford & Sons. So it's like, make sure that you actually find something that's of value to you, and invest your time in it. And also, I find that this is where we'll end this conversation. I feel like as far as our relationship with Jesus goes, those are the places he asked you to. It's not so much like bring these people to church. It's like go and befriend and build real relationship around real tangible things that people truly find value in, and then show them something that has ultimate value beyond those things. Yeah. And I think that, as far as like, dude, man, honoring people. Like, I don't mean to come down on Pokemon cards. I actually think it's awesome. But it's like one of those things that it's like, I've gone through my life of churches saying, you shouldn't like this, you shouldn't like this, you shouldn't like this. And I just don't think that's a good ethic or strategy for evangelizing the West.
Well, yeah, and just to last comment on that, like, I think sometimes in these communities, the community can be better than church community.
Of course.
Where it's like, so this thing is bad, but yet the principles and the values and like a God-honoring, loving people can happen because of the unity around this thing.
Well, I mean, you'll rarely be called out on your morality when you're trading Pokemon cards. You know, like, whereas the Bible in a church community puts you into uncomfortable situations, which makes it complex. But also makes it deeply valuable. And so I think there's always something more to be gained. Community is not just the point. It's moving people beyond that to a deep, affectionate relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And using Pokemon cards and
or whatever,
musicals and everything else to do that. But yeah, Zach, thanks for having me. Awesome. This was fun. And
we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, looking forward to co-hosting or just chatting or whatever, if this is helpful. That's great.